Greetings all. Welcome to the presentation for Millionaire Thinking. This is a presentation that is a continuation of something I did on the weekend in Coventry. And most of the people who have been invited today were on the Coventry weekend, for the team group Coventry weekend. And if you weren't there on the weekend, then this will be, I'm going to quickly do a quick recap of what we covered. But essentially, it's about, just adjusting the mindset. So you just think like a wealthy person, think like a millionaire. And if that's what you want, then this is going to kind of give you a little roadmap towards that process. So if we look at the idea of thinking like a millionaire, what do they do? How do they sort of navigate the world of finance, and how do they do that? Well, I'm going to share some ideas that will kind of illuminate that particular process. And my name is Miles Thomas. I'm a former accountant. So I was an accountant for about 20 years. And I learned a number of things in that particular profession. But what opened my eyes towards the world of investing generally is when I really retired from that career and I went into becoming basically an investor in properties, investor in the stock market, and investor in businesses I started or other people started. I invested in a number of films. I invested in some music albums. So that's basically my background. And that was about 20 years ago. So I basically retired from work about 20 years ago. And I decided, in fact, I remember sitting on the beach in Hawaii and I was bored. I was thinking, look, I don't need a suntan. And I didn't necessarily enjoy the lifestyle of the people I was hanging out with. They were the kind of millionaires who just want to basically play around and just party all the time, I suppose. And I didn't really necessarily enjoy that specific lifestyle. And prior to retiring, I was a workaholic. And so I actually literally enjoyed working. Some people hate working. I wasn't one of them. I was one of those guys who would come to work on Monday and say, thank God it's Monday, so I can get on and do what I had to do. So why was I so excited by working? Because I loved what I did. I was solving problems. I was actually making progress. I was being very creative. And I absolutely loved the whole business of working. I loved it. And so I made a decision. I was 37 when I retired. And then soon after getting bored, it took me about 6 months to a year to get bored of just hanging around on the beach doing nothing. And I decided I'm never going to retire. I made a decision, I will never retire. As long as I stay healthy, I'm going to just keep being busy and doing something I find useful and productive. And so, so essentially, I just carried on, just having fun. So let me basically share some ideas with you. So do millionaires go to work and look for a job that pays £1 million? Well, the answer is not really. So, the salary route, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some people who do pick up a salary, of over £1 million. Who are those people? They may be footballers, they may be basketball players, they may be boxers, who've been in that category. We're talking about musicians, maybe back in the day, even now, I suppose. So they can pick up a salary or, for what they do in that range. But most people don't really work for £1 million. So how does a regular Joe do it? Well, they will do it really by investing. So what they invest in? Well, they're going to go for a number of things. So let me just quickly share with you the list of things that will be on their list. They'll be looking to invest in property. What's useful about property? Well, property over time has this ability to just keep on increasing in value. So you put down maybe £100,000 down in 1980, and by the time you get to 2020, that £100,000 house is basically 600,000, 800,000. So it keeps on growing in value. And while you're holding on to the house, it's giving you rent, especially if you rent it out. Now, if it's the house you live in, then you don't rent that one out. But if it's a house that you bought for the purpose of renting to other people, that one gives you rental income. So you get a double whammy effect. And the benefits of doing it that way is that you're then able to, use that rental income either to live on going forward. That technically could be a pension, or you could just use it to buy more properties, okay, and just keep on building up. If you want to be, there's another model of buying and selling businesses. Now, this is basically what some serious billionaires, they play this game. So because property on the whole tends not to be big enough, an asset group or an asset class, for them to make some serious money. Now, depending on who you talk to, will determine what serious money means. I remember when I was about 23 and I was involved in a network marketing organization. And I remember two uplines above me was he came from a banking family. So his father was the owner of a private bank, and they kind of lived in the Belgravia area of London. And I remember him saying at the time, it's that 17 million pounds was peanuts. And I remember thinking to myself, come on, man, you know, who believes 17 million pounds is peanuts? And we're talking about the 1980s now. You know, who thinks 17 million pounds is peanuts? And so I kind of challenged him on that, because he had a kind of an arrogant, dismissive kind of, manner about him. And when I challenged him and he told me his background, I said, okay, I get why you think 17 million pounds is peanuts. I get it now, because he's used to dealing with, money in a very, very much larger amounts and quantities. And in my own career, I was actually managing over 100 million in my second to last job. I was managing over 100 million. So I understood that was possible. And so I got his perspective. But I was intrigued by the idea that someone thinks that, the double-digit millions is peanuts, and there are people out there who genuinely are in a place where that's peanuts, literally peanuts for them. Buying and selling a business, that's one model, okay? And another one is equity investing. So what's equity? Equity is basically shares in a company. So if you buy shares in Tesco or Sainsbury's, these are big multinational companies worth in the billions if you was to buy the whole thing. But you can buy small shares in them. I think they sell for about £3 each. So you can buy multiple shares depending on your budget. And that's by basically investing in equity. Now, why does anyone do that? For the same reason why you invest in property, because if the company is doing well over time, the share price will go up and it will pay you dividends. Dividends is equivalent to rent. So you've got an increasing valuation and you've got this rent and income coming in. Okay. And so people literally, have this, they will invest to make more money in the equity itself. And then the last one, dividend fishing, is a strategy that takes advantage of the dividend phenomena. So, when you invest in, let's say you want to put money into the bank in the old days, and they said they're going to pay you, 5% a year interest. Well, basically, you have to have the money in the account for 1 year, 365 days to claim that 5%. If you have the money for half the year, you only get 2.5%, right? But in the case of companies that pay dividends, when they pay a dividend, they don't require you to own the shares for the whole year. In the UK, companies pay dividends twice a year. So that means every time they pay a dividend, they're giving you 6 months worth of dividends, right? And that's most companies in the UK. And so if you pick up a dividend, you don't need to own it for 6 months to get 6 months dividend. You can literally own it for 1 day if you get the timing right, just before the cutoff date. And you could literally get 6 months dividend or 6 months rent equivalent to, and you can just take 1 day to gain it. Now, if you understand that process, now you can use the rules of the stock market to literally pick up dividends every week just by, jumping around. And so some people actually just fish for dividends. Okay? It's called dividend fishing. In Germany, this strategy is called dividend stripping. In America, this strategy is called dividend capture. But in the UK, I call this strategy dividend fishing. And the dividend fishing is slightly different from the German and the American way, because this one takes advantage of share price going up or going down. It really doesn't make a difference. You can make money either way. So that's how millionaires think. They think about owning assets that literally make them rich because they own it and pay them an income because they own it. That's the way they think. What they want to do is just buy this stuff and collect it over time. All right, so that's how millionaires think. So if you want to go on that pathway, I've kind of given you some sort of little crumbs, and I'm going to add some more to those crumbs in a bit. So, but let me just touch on what makes people poor. Well, essentially, what makes people poor is, and I'm going to cover that also in more detail, but there is a formula to poverty. And the poverty formula is this: earn less than your lifestyle. And so how do you handle the funding gap? Well, you borrow it. You borrow it on your credit card, you borrow it from the bank as a loan, you take an overdraft, you just borrow the money. And you basically allow you to live your life, go on holidays, buy a car, whatever it is you need to do for your life, right? For your life to make sense from your point of view. And but if you do this for long enough, you're going to find that you are going to get into financial trouble, because at some point you're going to have to pay back those loans, and those loans are going to mean that you're going to have to dedicate money to pay that money off. And by doing that, that reduces your spending power in the future. So whether you like it or not, your future spending power is going to go down. Your capacity will go down over time because you're having to fund these loans. But the poverty formula is earn less than the cost of your lifestyle and borrow the difference. Okay. Now, who does this? Well, obviously poor people do. Or people who want to live above their means. Okay. So they look rich on the outside, but technically over time, they're going to end up paying the price. But you know who also does this? The government. The government itself has this formula. And so the government are in no position to advise you on how to get rich, because they themselves don't know how to do it. Who benefits from the craziness of the government, behaving in using the poverty formula? Well, the government ends up getting free money. Why is that? Well, they tax the population of the countries that occupy the domains that they sort of govern. And what happens is that they tax them, so the tax money goes towards paying the debt. But because most countries spend more than tax revenue, okay, they have to borrow the difference from the banks. So the beneficiary of all of this is the banks. The banking system itself gets seriously rich from government overspending. Who pays the price? The taxpayers do. They're the ones who pay the price. So the government gets free money because they don't pay it, we pay it. I remember someone saying to me, but Miles, all you got to do, if you don't earn enough money, just make more money. Well, here's what's happening when you earn more money. You basically, if you don't sort of create some discipline around your spending, all you're going to do is just basically spend more. Okay. And I remember I fell into this trap many years ago when I was an accountant, because I remember one year my salary doubled. I got a promotion and my salary doubled. And instantly I wanted to go out and buy a brand new Mercedes. What was that going to do? That was going to increase all my payments, right? My payments would have gone up massively just so that I can own a flash car and, basically show off to my friends. And I remember at the time, my missus said to me, I wanted to go and buy a two-seater Mercedes. And my missus said to me, but where are the kids going to sit? And I goes, don't worry, we will have two cars. I'll have one for myself and you can have for the family car for the kids. And at the time she wasn't driving, so I'd have been driving both cars, right? And she looked at me and says, that doesn't make sense. And I remember her talking me out of it. But what was the thing that stimulated me to want to buy the Mercedes on that particular day? A friend of mine came to my house. He was also a fellow accountant, and he bought himself a brand new, I think it was a Toyota XR. I forget what the XR, what it was. Anyway, it was a Toyota sports car. Absolutely beautiful, flash little sports car. And he came onto my house basically sharing it with me. And he was kind of showing off a little bit, as young men do. They show off. And when I remember him leaving, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to show him. I can do it too. And then I was talked out of it. And I realized, you know what? My emotions can sometimes make me make some seriously bad decisions. And this is one of the things as well. A lot of people who grew up in poverty actually try to make themselves feel better by spending money. And this is one of the traps that people come from poor backgrounds get into. They use money as therapy, or they use spending as therapy. And they don't really follow the plans that make them seriously wealthy. But according to Dave Ramsey, he says this: unless you control your spending, making more money will not help you to become wealthy. Because all you're going to do is get bigger payments. And when I read this, I remember thinking to myself, yes, he's right. Because all I did was get a bigger house. And then I remember when I even broke up with my missus. And what did I do? I ended up having two houses. I was literally paying for two houses. I was living in one mason. I bought a masonette for myself, and then the family had a 4-bedroom house, and I was literally paying for both. And you know, so you make some decisions that really are not very helpful. Anyway, let's look at the wealth formula. The wealth formula says this: earn more than the cost of your lifestyle. So whatever your lifestyle is, earn more than that. Maybe even double, earn double. So you spend $5,000 a year. Sorry, I'm not $5,000 a year, $5,000 a month. You spend $5,000 a month, then earn $10,000 a month. Double. What do you do with the extra? You invest that extra on assets that go up in value and pay you an income. So they pay you an income and they go up in value. The word appreciating is the accounting term for increasing assets. Depreciating is the accounting word for reducing assets. So we want assets that go up in value over time. Now, there is a man called Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And when it comes to loans, he puts them in two categories. He has what he calls good debt and bad debt. Now, the word bad debt has a specific meaning in accountancy, but I want to use how he means it. So his definition is: a good debt is when you borrow the money and the thing you bought with that money pays the debt off. So you don't pay off, the asset you bought pays it off. So if you borrow money to buy a house, to rent it out, the house pays the debt back and you don't. If you borrow the money to, say, buy a business, the business pays the debt back and you don't. Okay, the profits from the business pays for it, you don't. Whereas a bad debt is where you borrow the money to go on holiday, for example, and then you have to pay the money back out of your salary or some other means to pay that money back. So when you physically pay the loan back out of your own pocket, he calls that a bad debt. A good debt is when you borrow the money and the thing you borrow the money for, that thing pays the debt back and you don't. Let me tell you a real extreme example of that. The Glazier brothers, who are an American sort of family, they bought a company called Manchester United, which is a football club in the UK. And I can't remember what they paid for it, but they literally paid in the millions, right, to literally own Manchester United, the football club. And these are two American brothers. And so what did they do? They borrowed the money. They borrowed the money to buy the club. And then how did they pay that money back? They put that debt in Manchester United. So now the club itself has to pay that money back. So the brothers end up getting that Manchester United club for free. So they borrowed the money from the bank. They put that debt in the club. The club is now paying for the debt, and the brothers own Man United for free. That's how the property game works, by the way. They use the same property investing formula to buy and sell companies, and that's what they did. The Glazier brothers. So I want to adjust the way you think, just in case there are any accountants in the house. I want to redefine the word asset, because I did mention buy assets, right? And I want to use a definition that really comes from the world of investing, not the world of accounting, right? So, because accountants will tell you that an asset is something that has significant value. They call it material value. The word material in accounting means significant. So they'll say it has material value that basically you own for a time and you own or control it. And that's their definition for an asset. It's not really not that complex, but a savvy investor will tell you that an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket because you own it. And a liability, according to a savvy investor, is something that takes money out of your pocket because you own it. So with that in mind, let's have a sort of look at the behavior of different groups of people. So I'm calling this first group the people who come in the poor camp, right? And this is basically psychology. Remember this, not money, psychology. Money comes into their life. Their mentality is pay their bills to keep the debt collectors and those guys away from the door. And they pay their bills. And once they've paid off all their bills, they don't really have much left over. So they go back to work and repeat the process. If you do this for 60 years, 40, 60 years, you ain't got nothing. You literally will have nothing to your name. And many people end up as old people broke because they followed this rule. Now you might say again, well, I just earn my money. So let me share with you someone who did that. They earned a lot of money, but they thought like a poor person. And the first person that comes to mind is someone like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson earned, some say 100 million, sorry, and some say 200 million. But he literally earned ridiculous amounts of money in his career. And for a season, he was literally the most talented boxer in America, in the world, actually. He was the most talented boxer in the world for a season. And he earned ridiculous amounts of money. But because he thought like a poor person, all he did was spend that money. He literally was able to spend his money. Now, if he was thinking like a rich person, 1 million alone would have made him free and never have to work ever again. But he had 100 million of them and he still went broke. And that's hard work. But the only reason why that happened to him is because he thought like a poor person. And the truth is, most basketball players who earn ridiculous money, if they don't get financial education because they come from poor backgrounds, trying to get out of the ghetto, or out of the projects, as they call it in America, the council estates from the UK point of view, they basically spend all the money, looking good, looking flash, and then when they retire, they're broke. They're broke. Same with boxers, and same with all the other guys who make loads of money in their career. Unless they get guidance from someone who's wise around money, they will go broke, okay? Because they think like poor people. So even if you earn 100 million a year, or 100 million in your career, or 1 million a year, or even a month, if you think like a person, you will go broke, okay? Because your lifestyle is more than your income, based on the poverty formula I shared with you earlier. A middle-class person has a different challenge because they have more money than they need on the basics. They go off and they buy stuff. Now, remember I said to you that an asset is something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Well, they go and buy the biggest house they can afford and the biggest car they can afford. So what do both those two things do? Well, they create bills for you. The house you buy will give you bills, right? What are those bills? Whether you're talking about the mortgage payments, you're talking about the utility bill payments, you're talking about maintenance payments, you're talking about buying furniture payments, insurance payments, and so on and so forth, council tax, etc., etc. You just get a bunch of bills when you own a house. And if you own a car, you get a bunch of bills too. What are those bills? You got to pay car insurance. You got to pay for petrol. You got to pay to maintain the car with MOT, etc. You've got to, if you finance a car on credit, you pay for that, and so on and so forth. Parking tickets, speeding fines, you name it, that come with cars. And so you've got a whole bunch of bills coming from your balance sheet, okay? Now, these are accounting assets, but according to a savvy investor, these accounting assets are liabilities because they take money out of your pocket because you own them. So they generate bills in addition to the bills in your lifestyle. So you've got these two things coming out, okay? The downside of the middle-class person is that if they lose this income stream, these things are not going to go away. You still need to live somewhere, and most people won't stop driving. As a consequence, these regular bills start to hurt them. So that if they don't downsize, they have a problem, okay? And most people don't like downsizing because they're emotionally attached to their lifestyle, where they live, where the kids go to school, their friends in the neighborhood, they're attached to whatever it is they're attached to. The church around the corner, whatever it is that locks you into your neighborhood and make you love it, they're locked into that. And so they always have to keep this going to fund this. If we look at a rich person, so I want to take some time on this one. This is again, psychology now. So you could literally, after seeing this, even if you earn, say, I don't know, £500 a month, that you could use this formula I'm going to share with you in a minute to become a rich person, even if you earn £500 a month, if you follow this formula. Okay, so how does it work? Well, number one, money comes into your life. Number two, well, that's not two. Number two is here. So the first thing they do is they pay themselves first. So they take a chunk of their money and say, this money is for investing. That could be 10%, 20%, whatever it is. You take a chunk of your money and you invest that. Okay. And what they then do, they then live their life. And so let's say this person's on £1,000 a month, and they choose to say invest 20%, £200 goes into this area of the balance sheet, and then they spend the rest. And then they keep on doing that. So what happens when you buy assets, and these are not accounting assets, but these are investor assets, i.e. things that give you an income because you own it and they go up in value after you purchased it. What about those things? Well, they effectively start creating an income stream for you. They create an income stream. So shares give you dividends, bonds give you interest, rental properties will give you rent. Businesses will give you profits, and so on and so forth, or dividends. And so they start to pay you. And if you then take all of that money and you reinvest all of that, now you've got two things funding your assets. So it starts to speed up. You get your percentage from your earned income, and you get initially all of your unearned income, your passive income. And you just keep on doing this. If you keep on doing this, you're going to create a virtuous cycle, okay? And that virtuous cycle is going to be what grows your wealth faster and faster as time goes on, okay? And therefore, so let me just go back to this last chart, just so I can share with you. The poor person, the middle class person, when they think about money, they focus on their income. How much money do I earn? And that's their focus. They want to focus on earning 20,000 a year, or 70,000 a year, or 300,000 a year, whatever your number is, whatever your profession will pay you. That's their focus. And they won't. And I remember when I was earning a decent amount of money, I wouldn't dream about getting a job that paid what I started off as an accountant. I wouldn't dream about it. It wouldn't even come into my mind. I wouldn't do it. And most people are like that. Wherever your number is, you wouldn't go for less unless you were forced. Okay, so that's their focus, the money, the income. The wealthy person doesn't focus there. They focus here. They focus on their net worth. So let's do an example. Imagine you have £1 million worth of assets, and let's say you have say £700,000 worth of liabilities. Well, that's assets minus liabilities equals net worth. So 1 million minus 700,000 gives you 300,000. So your net worth is 300,000. Okay, and as you reduce this or you increase this, this will increase, and this is what they focus on, growing this. Okay, so let's go with this scenario. Let's say this person is going to grow, their plan is to grow their net worth to £1 million. Okay, so once they've hit their target of £1 million, then they will say, great, now I've done that, I can start splitting this money. Instead of putting 100% down here, I'm going to maybe put, say 70% down here, and then put 30% over here. And 30% of this passive income now funds their liabilities. It'll fund their house payments. It'll fund their car payments and any other foolishness they want to get involved in. Then that will fund that. And that basically creates their second expenses. So even though these two things look identical on the middle class person and the rich person, the key difference is this. This, for a middle class person, I'll show it to you again. For the middle class person, the money that they earn from their job funds their house and funds their car. So their earned income funds this, the liabilities. Whereas the rich person, they get their assets to fund this. So the assets fund the liabilities for a rich person, and for a middle class person, their income funds their liabilities. And that's the key difference. So why does that even make any difference? Well, if the rich person loses their job, it doesn't make a difference because this is funding this. Assets are funding liabilities. Whereas if the middle class person loses their job, they lose the ability to fund their liabilities or fund their lifestyle. Another feature I want to bring to your attention is that with number 4, the passive income, money you get for not earning, for not working, if this becomes much, much larger than 3 and 7, you don't even need this job anymore. You're financially free. So when number 4 is greater than 3 and 7 added together, you're financially free. That's financial freedom. Okay. Now, the middle class person can't get financial freedom because there's nothing coming in from here to cover these two. Whereas the rich person builds this up. And so literally, if someone is earning, let's say £1,000 a month, and that's it. If they got to a stage where, and their lifestyle was £1,000 a month, if they get to a stage where the passive income gets to a point where it's £2,000 a month, they don't need to work anymore. They can maintain their lifestyle without working. Now they're free. They can do what they want to do. Okay. Let me share with you. I want to break down this asset as defined by investors. Okay. And so in this row, these are appreciating assets, assets that go up in value over time. And these are depreciating assets, that's assets that go down in value over time. These assets in this column will generate an income for you because you own it and you do something with the asset. And this asset generates a net expense for you, okay? Because you own and enjoy the asset. Number 4, you own house in a down market. Now, a down market is when, you know, the property market is in a basically a 20-year cycle, roughly. So you get a few years where it's going up, and then it'll go down, and it'll go up. So let me be specific. 1989, the property market was booming, right? It was right at a peak. Who was in power? Margaret Thatcher. And her Chancellor of Exchequer was a man called Nigel Lawson. And this in the UK. And so in 1989, property price was really peaking. And I remember a few people kept saying to me, well, Miles, aren't you going to buy property now? And when I looked at the whole economic environment we were in, I realized the timing was wrong. Now, a few of my family members literally bought around that time, but I decided to wait. Okay. And basically in 1990, the property market bubble burst and oil price started to fall. It fell in 91, it fell in 92, it fell in 93. Okay. And around 93 hit the floor and just stayed there. And it stayed there for 94, 95, 96. Then 97, it started to rise up again. And we went back into another bullish bubble. The word bullish means going up. And they went into another property increase from about 97 onwards. So this would have been the equivalent of you buying your house in 1989. Okay. Soon after that, the property went down in value. Okay. But because you're living in it, you've now got a depreciating asset that's costing you money to live in it. If you buy a car for personal use, your car is going down in value over time, called depreciation. And it's costing you money to run your car. So that fits into box number 4 of assets. Remember, everything here, according to an accountant, is an asset. Everything here is an asset, according to an accountant. You've got, let's look at number 2. This is your own house in upmarket. So remember I painted the picture for you. 89 was a peak, then it fell to in 91, 92. So let's say you bought the house in 94, which is exactly when I bought my first house. I bought it in 94. And after that, 97 onwards, I was looking like I was a genius compared to those who bought before me in 1989, because I was in pure positive equity, whereas other people I knew went into negative equity because they bought at the peak and then the market crashed on them. So own home in upmarket. Now, this was me. However, because I was living in it and I was paying the bills, I had a net expense, even though I was getting positive equity. Okay. But until you sell the house, you can't pocket that money. Number 3, this would be a falling asset class. So going back into, let's say you buy a house in 1989, the house prices fall, but you're renting it. Well, because you're renting it, the rental income pays for the mortgage and gives you some extra on top. So you've got a positive cash flow. However, you've got a reduction in the asset price. If a business goes down in value over time, because the share price is linked to the profitability of a business, if a business starts to go to basically lose their either market share or they lose the profits start going down consistently over time, the share price over time will come down eventually. And when that happens, you've got a share price that's falling. But if they pay you a dividend, then you've got a depreciating asset generating an income for you. Number 3, a taxi driver, when he owns a car, however, it's generating an income for him. So he's got a depreciating asset, but it's giving him an income. Cash in the bank. Now, cash in the bank might be easy to understand for some, hard for others to understand. So let me explain. Cash in the bank, because of something called inflation, is losing value over time. It's losing its purchasing power. So let me give you the example. If your mother in 1970 sent you to go as a child to go out and buy a loaf of bread, how much would she need to give you? And the answer would be roughly about 10 pence. In 1970, 10p would have bought you a loaf of bread, which would have about 30 slices in it. Same as today, no difference. Okay. However, so if I base it on £1, £1 in 1970 would have bought you 10 loaves of bread. Today, £1 will buy you, in some cases, less than one loaf, and at the very best will buy you one loaf of bread. And so you can see that the purchasing power of money is going down over time. That pound is buying you less and less and less things. So money itself is losing value. So money is a depreciating asset. However, if you have the money growing and creating interest for you, then effectively you're earning money from a depreciating asset. So that's why money is in this category. And if you're not earning any interest at all because the money sat in your wallet or under your pillow, then you've just basically got something that's, maybe sitting on the fence, okay, over here. It's not costing you, but it's not making you either. So sit on the fence. Let's look at number one. Number one, a rental property in an upmarket. So this is us buying the property in 94, okay? 97 onwards, we know the price is going up. And it's generating rent. So you've got this double whammy effect. You've got an increase in asset price and you've got income, okay? You invest in a business. All right, let's say a business on a stock exchange. You invest in a business and it's going up in value over time. There's nothing you're doing; it just goes up. Let's say from Tesco, there was a time when Sainsbury's was the number one in terms of valuation, was the number one grocery store in the UK, and Tesco was far back, and because of strategic investments that Tesco made, they started to catch up with Sainsbury's and eventually overtook them and they became the number one. Okay, so let's say you bought Tesco at the time when it was really cheap and basically, let's say, position number 4. As they started to grow their business and become number one, their share prices was rising and they're giving you dividends. So this would be a double whammy effect: increasing share price, paying you dividends. Category number 1. So, according to Kiyosaki, these two assets are liabilities because they take money out of your pocket. And according to him, these two liabilities are assets because they put money in your pocket. There's an accountant in Australia called Brad Sugars. He wrote a book called Billionaire in Training, okay? And in that book, he basically breaks down effectively how to be wealthy. But he doesn't even talk about being a millionaire. He talks about being a billionaire, okay? How to become a billionaire. And he basically tells you to focus on this one only. Forget about number 3. Forget that one. Go with this one. And here's the thing. If you just did this by accident, you would get rich by accident. Even if you were an idiot, you would get rich by accident. Whereas, and so let me share this with you, because there's a psychologist actually who said that the children of rich people, because they were taught the good habits in the first place by watching their parents manage money and just being around the conversations around money, they do the right things by accident because they've been programmed to do it correctly. So they don't engage in foolish behaviors, okay? But by accident, they just do the right behaviors. So even if they're foolish, they will do the right things by accident and become rich by accident. Whereas someone who comes from a poor background is going to do the wrong things by accident, and they'll become poor by accident. By accident, they'll become poor because their lifestyle and their environment and everything taught them the wrong things to do. Go out there and spend money to make yourself feel good. Go out there and spend money to make yourself look good. But go out and buy yourself, and whatever the thing is, they do the wrong things by accident. And so unless you, like myself, grew up in the wrong environment and then get trained and see, and through observation, watching other people, because I worked with, very successful people, by working with them and watching them, and you realize, there's a different way. So unless you get exposure to something different outside your environment, you won't see it. But if you do see it, then you can make a decision. Okay, I get why they have different results. And then you can copy them. So according to Brad Sugars, in his book, Billionaire in Training, he says, because millionaire just isn't rich enough. So look at that. Brad Sugars is saying that being a millionaire is not rich enough. So he's even thinking £1,000,000 is not enough. I remember in 2012, I think it's 2012, I went to something called the National Achievers Convention. I went to that event, and the keynote speaker at the time was a man called Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, long before he became president, Donald Trump was a keynote speaker. And what I remember from his speech, many things he said, but the things that stuck with me to this day, and I think I will die with this message, he said that, I think it was around the 1980s, 1990s, he got into some serious trouble with his real estate business and he went bankrupt. And he said he was $9 billion with a B, $9 billion in debt. He was $9 billion in debt. And he climbed out of that hole and back to being a billionaire again in positive numbers because he had this mindset. So a lot of people will say, yeah, but Donald Trump got start from his daddy, because his dad gave him something like 100 million to get started in business. That may be true. In fact, it wasn't 100 million, it was a bit smaller than that, but that may be true. But he literally went 9 billion into a hole and he climbed out of it because he had the correct thinking on how to make money. He wasn't thinking down here, he was thinking up here. And I remember thinking to myself, I had literally gone from having no money when I was young to having a lot of money, then lost it. And I remember thinking, I was never, ever 9 billion in a hole, never. So as instantly I decided, you know what? I don't care, man. I don't really care what happens to me going forward. I'm never, ever going to grumble about anything, because if this man can climb out of a $9 billion hole, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing I've been through that was worse than that. So I ain't got nothing to say. Do you know what I mean? Nothing. And I remember even some people complaining about going to prison and stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, but a man called Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and he came out and became the prime minister because his mentality was powerful. He came out, he wasn't a broken spirit. He came out a positive, powerful man, and he led his country to freedom after 27 years of being locked up. So if you have the right mentality, any adversity makes you stronger and makes you way more powerful. In line with the Billionairing Training book, remember I said to you that some people play the game of buying businesses, and the Glazier brothers did that when they bought Man United, okay? Manchester United Football Club. So here is the model that they work with. So a millionaire, so let me start with a millionaire. A millionaire will focus on owning a business, okay? And when they own the business, they will grow this business. So I'm showing you the formula now. They will grow this business, okay, to a significant value, and then they will sell it. Then they will get another business. They'll start again, do another business, grow that, and then they'll sell it for millions. And they'll go into another business and they'll grow that one, and they become like a serial business grower. And it might take them 5 to 10 years to literally start from nothing, grow it to a particular size, and then sell it. So every maybe 5 to 10 years, they're selling it for maybe 100 million, which is equivalent of 10 million a year, okay? But essentially that's what they're doing. That's what millionaires do if they're serious, okay? People who are not in that category, they'll basically run the business and use the profits of the business to pay them their salary and just stay in the business, and that's it. They'll never sell the business. But serious millionaires, they will use the business itself. They'll create a business and sell it, move on to the next one and sell it, move on to the next one and sell it. And that's how millionaires approach the world of business if they're going to play this game in a serious way, okay? Billionaires have a slightly different model. A billionaire will create a business. He'll then create a second business. He'll have a third business and a fourth, and so on and so forth. And it will all be under a holding company. So he'll have this company, he'll own this company, and this company will own all of these smaller businesses. And each one of them will be run independently. So everyone will have their own boss, manager, and etc. And in some cases, they may even have their own board of directors. Depends. Mostly the board of directors will sit up here and they'll manage all of these as separate entities. But you're going to have someone who is the main person to make sure this business does well. Same with this, same with this, same with this. And they at the top here, their job is to make sure that each of these businesses are given the resources and funding to do well. They're going to be given targets, and they're going to be given, all the resources necessary to grow their business. And then all they have to do is feed the profits back up to the holding company. And that's basically how billionaires run their businesses. And so that's what they do. So they have the skill of managing people. That's their main skill set. They manage people, and they will get high achieving, overachieving executives to run each of these businesses. And they're given targets, and that's how they play that game. So you might say, but Miles, how do you know this? Have you ever run a multi-billion pound organization? Well, the answer, I haven't actually, but I actually invest in them. And so I also publish information on them as well every week. So I'm kind of, very familiar to how they roll and how they approach things. So let me just give you an example of what I'm saying to you. The first one is a company called Sainsbury's, which you may have heard of. I'll read it to you. Sainsbury's is a general merchandise retailer in the United Kingdom. The company operates through its segments: retail, financial services, and property investment. So go back here: retail, financial services, property investment, Sainsbury's. The retail segment is engaged in the operation of supermarkets and convenience. The financial service segment includes the operation of Sainsbury's Bank PLC, Sainsbury's Bank. The property investment segment includes the company's joint venture with British Land, another property company, big player in the UK. So it's got a JV with British Land Company and Land Securities Group PLC, another big real estate company in the UK. And Sainsbury's Bank provides a range of products, including insurances, credit cards, and that's telling you what each one does. So the bank business provides insurance, credit cards, savings and loans. Sainsbury's Bank offers car, home, pet and life insurance and travel insurance. Sainsbury's Energy, gas and electricity, and a range of boilers. Sainsbury's Energy, okay? Sainsbury's Entertainment offers movies, music, books, games, and other entertainment products. So if I go back over here, you've got Sainsbury's Holding Company. That's the shops that we're familiar with. That's the bank. That's the property business. And then you've got over here the entertainment business. And you had the other one, the energy business. So they've actually got 5 businesses underneath them, okay? And they're worth £6.9 billion. So if you want to own Sainsbury's, write a check for that and it's yours. Another company, WPP PLC. Now, this company was literally started by one man in the 1980s. He's no longer there anymore. His name is Sir Martin. His name is gone from memory. Martin something. Martin, it won't come to mind. Anyway, but this character used to work as an accountant. He was an accountant back in the day. And he obviously learned a lot of things as an accountant. He went to work for a company called Saatchi & Saatchi. And then from there, he set up this company, okay? WPP is a holding company engaged in providing communication services. The company comprises companies in a range of disciplines, which include advertising, media investment management, data investment management, public relations and public affairs, branding and identity, healthcare communications, direct, digital, promotion and relationship marketing, and specialist communications. The company operates through 4 segments: advertising and media investment, data investment management, public relations and public affairs, branding consulting, health and wellness, and specialist communications. The company has operations in 112 countries. The company offers global, national, and specialist advertising services through a range of international and specialist agencies, which includes Bates, CHI and Partners, Gray, JWT, which stands for J. Walter Thompson, Ogilvy and Mather, Advertising, and YNR. So again, this company has, WPP is here, and you've got all these different advertising agencies underneath. And again, back in the 1990s, I used to follow this company by the way, his name is Martin Sorrell. So Martin Sorrell. He wasn't Sir when I was following him, but he obviously got knighted since. And he basically went out and he went shopping. With this, he went shopping and he bought up advertising agencies, and he went into the advertising business because, like I said, he learned his skills from being the director of finance in Saatchi & Saatchi, which at the time was the biggest advertising company in the world. And when he built it up, he made his company the #1 in the world, bigger than Saatchi & Saatchi. His company is worth, or he's not there anymore, but the company is worth 11.8 billion. Okay. Last one, Segro, a UK-based real estate investment trust. The company owns, develops, and manages warehouse properties in the UK and continental Europe. Its segments include Greater London, Thames Valley, and National Logistics, Northern Europe, principally Germany, Southern Europe, principally France, and Central Europe, principally Poland. The portfolio includes warehouses and light industrial buildings, including warehouses used as data centers and for logistics operations. These are concentrated in the UK, France, Germany, and Poland. The remainder of the portfolio is located across European countries, including Spain, the Netherlands, and the Czech Republic. Its properties are used by various sectors, including retail, transport and logistics, post and parcel delivery, service and utilities, retail and technology, media and telecoms. They're worth 15.5 billion. 15.5 billion. Again, if you go to this model, they're here, and underneath them, they got different property businesses in different countries scattered throughout Europe. And each one, obviously, the Czech Republic business is its own self-contained business, as is the one in Germany, as is the one in Poland, and so on and so forth. Okay, they all run themselves, and they basically feed back the profits to the holding company. That's how billionaires play this game. Okay, so if you want to play the billionaire game, buying and selling business is the way. But what skills must you have? Well, you must actually know how to run a business that effectively doesn't need you to be in it. Because most people, when they run their business, if they're not there, the business will die. They have to figure out a way to train people to run the business for them so they don't have to do it themselves. Let's look at a famous guy called Richard Branson. When he started Virgin Records, he got to a stage where he didn't even need to be there anymore. The guys in Virgin Records knew what to do. They could run the business. They could sign up artists. They could print records. They can actually get them in the studio. They can get them recorded, and they can get them gigging all over the world, doing concerts, okay, generating revenue for the bands and so on and so forth. And they didn't need him to be there. He could be on his island in the Caribbean, sitting down. He then went to this other business called Virgin Airlines. Same story. He didn't have to be flying any planes. I've been on Virgin flights many times. I've never seen Richard Branson on the plane once with me, saying, "Hi, how you doing, Miles? Welcome to Virgin Airlines." I never saw him once because he had staff to do that for him. And that's the game the billionaires play. They create businesses, and then if they're going to have a holding company, then they use his assets to go buy more businesses. Okay, and that's the game they play. I want to share with you a strategy that I kind of teach, and it's the dividend fishing model. Okay, and so I said to you that in the top companies in the UK are part of a group called the FTSE 100, the top 100, and they're the biggest ones in the UK stock exchange, and they literally pay dividends to you for owning those shares. So let me share with you how lucrative this particular investment strategy is. According to the City AM newspaper, this paper comes out in London mostly, certainly in the centre of London. So if you live in the posh parts of London and the centre, you'll see this by the train stations or the tube stations. It says here, the FTSE 100 companies are expected to shell out nearly 80 billion, and that was in 2016, 80 billion in dividends next year. So they'll talk about 2017, okay? And then it goes on to talk about that. Now, if I just take 80 billion and I divide that by 12, that basically works out to be 6 billion every month. 6 billion every month. And if I divide it by 52, it works out to be 1.5 billion every week. So every week, these guys are paying out £1.5 billion a week. A week. And all you got to do is literally stand under the dripping tap and collect the money with your bucket. Go under there with a bucket, go under there with a cup or a glass, but go collect the money. Okay? And all you have to do to get this money is own the shares that are paying dividends. And it really is that simple. So that's basically what I teach and what I publish information on. And that's my dividend fishing strategy. So in summary, what have I told you about how to think like a millionaire? Well, the serious players buy and sell businesses for capital growth. Okay? And it will take them between 5 and 10 years to pull it off, to get to a decent size. And when they sell it, we're talking about maybe £1 billion in valuation. We're talking maybe 100 million in valuation, depending on what level they're playing at. Okay. If you look at the likes of Zuckerberg with Facebook, he grew his company from literally nothing into a monster. And then he sold his shares. He literally sold the shares on the stock exchange. So he got paid money for his company. And then, so now other shareholders own his company with him. And then he's now the CEO. Bill Gates, when he started Microsoft, did exactly the same thing. He started Microsoft, software company, and then he sold his company on a stock exchange. And I think he kept 15% of the company for himself. And him, I'm not sure how much his business partner had, but let's say he had 15 too. So they would have sold 70% of the company to the stock exchange for everyone else in the world to buy those shares. And that made him a billionaire. It made him a billionaire just doing exactly that. Okay. Buy and sell businesses for the dividend income. Now this is what I specialize in. So I have a strategy where we basically buy and sell the business to pick up these regular dividend incomes. So why do I focus here and not here? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, if you said to me, Miles, what price will Sainsbury's be next year, next week, next month, next week? I don't know. I genuinely don't know the answer. I can use tools like technical analysis tools to kind of guess, but regardless, I'm still guessing. I don't know. But these companies tell you when they're going to pay a dividend. There's no guessing. They tell you. So all you got to do is put in your diary and go and buy the shares at the right time and get the money. It's free money. So and what I've shared with you today, you need to go shopping for income producing assets that go up in value after you've purchased it. Okay. The strategy we use, we basically receive income every week from the UK's top 100 companies. And we use the power of compounding to grow the investment exponentially. So we can literally grow our money ridiculously quickly because we're using exponential. We're using leverage to grow the money exponentially, and we're using compounding over time. Okay. So that's the technical side I wanted to share with you. But remember I said to you before, an idiot who came from a rich family will do the right things by accident. And a smart person from a poor family may struggle to do what an idiot from a rich family can do easily because of the wrong programming, the wrong understanding, etc. So let me share with you something on psychology now, because if you can get this locked, your life will be so much easier. This table comes from a psychologist. He's the late David Hawkins. And he wrote a book called Power versus Force. I would suggest you read the book or just go to the library and read it, or go and buy it. Power versus Force. And the subtitle is The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. The hidden things that make you behave in certain ways. Okay. So let me just go through the table. That's the level described in words. That's the frequency associated in terms of numbers. This is the emotion this goes through. There's a process you go through. The way you see the world, your life view, and the way you believe God is, your belief in God, if you have that belief. Okay, that's how he's broken this table down. There's two zones. The pink zone in the lower frequencies, and when you are here, everything is difficult. And when you're in the blue zone, everything is easy. Remember that. So if you are feeling a feeling of shame, you feel ashamed of yourself for whatever reasons, then you're vibing on a frequency of 20. Your emotion is one of humiliation. You feel humiliated. Okay? You're feeling you're humiliated. Your view of life is miserable. And as far as you're concerned, God despises you because of what wickedness you did that you're ashamed of. You then start to move up in frequency, you know. Now you start to feel guilty. So you're improving. You're gone to 30. Now your emotion is one of blaming. You either blame yourself, you blame someone else, you're blaming. Your view of the world is evil. The world is evil. And God is vindictive in your mind. You go from guilty to kind of just giving up, apathy. You just think, what can I do about it anyway? Number 50, your view of life, your emotion is one of despair. Abdication is your process. Your view of life is hopeless. God is condemning you. You step up to fear. So you're getting more energy because this more higher up you go, you're getting energy now. You become fearful. When you're fearful, your emotion is one of anxiety. Okay. I know people who literally live here. They live here. And I never understood this. I never understood it until I started studying psychology. And then I started to, I get what's going on. They're living here. They're in a place of fear. For them, the world is frightening and God is punitive. They step up to desire. The emotion is one of craving. The process is one of enslavement. To them, life is disappointing and God is denying them whatever they're praying for or wanting. Okay, let me share this with you. When people say they're in love, okay, I'm in love with this person, whatever, okay, they're not talking about this love. They're talking about love here on this frequency, 125. This is where they are. And because they're here, they're enslaved. They're enslaved by that emotion. And no doubt people go into this model and they say love is blind. And then eventually you open your eyes and you think, well, who is this idiot I'm with? And then all of a sudden you get disappointed by your choices, okay? Because you're here in your vibrational frequency, 125. You then become angry. You get more energy. You become angry. Then you go through the emotion of hate. You become aggressive. For you, your view of life is one of antagonism. Life is antagonistic. And for you, God is vengeful. You step up in frequency to pride. They say, well, I won't go into it. Pride. Your emotion is one of scorn. View is demanding of you. It's demanding. Life is just demanding. And for you, God doesn't even care. You step up to a place of courage. You're now in the blue zone. 200. You feel this weight of your shoulders just lifted. Affirmation is your emotional state. You feel a process of empowerment. For you, life is now feasible. You can see how things can work. And for you, God is permitting you. Yeah? You're into a state of neutrality, 250. Your emotion is one of trust. You trust. You're in a process of release. What is going on here? Well, you're releasing the stuff that was kind of dragging you down. Just release it. You almost like, I've even heard Christians say, I'm going to leave it with God. Let God handle that one. That's too much for me right now. They release. They're in a process of release. For them, life is satisfactory and God is enabling them. They get to a stage of willingness. 310. Their emotion is one of optimism. Now, this is where I used to live in my 20s. So when people were down here, I didn't get it. My missus was down here. I never understood her because I was living here in optimism. And that was my lowest state, my lowest. So I never got my missus when she was down here doing stuff that was based on her own background. Okay. Optimism is where I was living. Intention, that's the process you're in. Life is, when you look at life, you're just hopeful. And God, for you, God is inspiring. It's inspiring. Acceptance. You're in a state of forgiveness here. The process you're going through is one of transcendence. For you, life is harmonious. Harmonious. God is merciful. And this is happening at the same time. People are down here being miserable in a state of hopelessness and frightened when life is frightening to other people at the same time. Maybe even the same family. Life is harmonious. When you step up to a place called reason, now, for those of you who are familiar with the Freemasonry kind of models, this is their highest state. They try and get their people to level 400. Reason. Most scientists and the great thinkers, they're here. Reason. The emotion, one of understanding. The process is one of abstraction. Life is meaningful and God is wise. Okay? But even though you get men thinking this is the highest level, there's more. Go to a place of love, 500. Your emotion is one of reverence. You go through a process of revelation, revealing. Things are being revealed to you. Your view of life is benign, and for you, God is loving. And this is happening at the same time. Other people are down here calling something love and having a very different experience. Step up to joy. Your emotion is one of serenity. Life is complete. And for you, God is one. You're in a place of peace. Your emotion is one of bliss. Your process, illumination. Life is perfect. God is all being. Enlightenment has many levels to enlightenment. You've got 700 to 1,000. So this is levels here. Emotion, one of ineffable. The process you're going through is pure consciousness. Life just is. And when you see God, you just see self. In other words, God and you are one. There's a character in the Bible called Jesus. He was in a place where he said, I and my Father are one. We're the same. When he looked in the mirror, he was just looking at God. Okay, if you go to the Bible, in Psalms 82 verse 6, it says, God is speaking, by the way, and he says, ye are gods. Who's saying that? God is telling you that human beings are gods. God is saying human beings are God. Why? Because he made you in his image. So he made you to be like himself. He made you like himself. And in Psalms 82 verse 6, it literally states those words. Literally. Different people give those words different meanings. It's irrelevant what meaning you give it. The truth is, if you can raise your vibrational frequency, i.e. what you focus your attention on, you can experience all of this. And literally at the same time, while someone is down there being miserable and having a real tough time, other people up here and life is just simple. At the same time. What does that mean? You could literally have a situation where people are in concentration camp, in, say, the Jewish people when they've been rounded up by the Nazis. And people up here in the same concentration camp. And there was a guy, how do I know this? There was a guy called Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called In Search of Meaning. And he literally said the people who were living here in a concentration camp had a real hard time. And they suffered. And they died. And the people here just was having a great old time. And they survived. You had people who were slaves on the plantations of the Caribbean in America. And those who lived down here had a real hard time. And those who are up here, they created songs. And out of that came gospel. Out of that came the blues. Well, I think the blues were down here. My baby left me. I mean, the blues are kind of a low vibrational frequency. But you had people up here singing about gospel and how God is great. I mean, literally on the same plantation. Both picking cotton. One is singing and one is moaning. This is the vibrational frequency. So why have I shared all of this with you? Because if you want to make money simple for you to make, you need to be in the green zone. And the green zone is really a piece of the blue zone. You need to be between 310 and 500. If you are emotionally here, making money for you will be easy. But if you're emotionally down here, you're going to think it's difficult, hard, and too much. So all you have to do is literally entertain and put into your lifestyle processes that raise you up to be here. And you can do it in any way you like. You can do it through yoga, meditation, you can go to church. It really makes no difference. However you do it, go and dance and sing, you know, just do things that you love. But if you can raise your vibrational frequency, you put yourself in a place where this becomes easy for you. Remember I told you, when I was younger, I lived here naturally. That was my natural state. I lived here. So for me, things were easier than for my partner who lived down here somewhere, you know, and everything for her was hard. And we're both the same person, living in the same house, having the same experience. When the kids are making up noise, she was up here fussing, and I was up here thinking, okay, kids, we're going to the park. Come on, I can see what's going on here. And literally, I'd come into my house after work, and she'd be screaming at the kids. And I watch what's going on. I say, okay, put your trainers on, kids. We're going to the park. Yay! And I'd literally wear them out. Because all I could see is that they had way too much energy, and they were sitting in the house. I'd take them to the park, and I'd literally do circuit training with them, wear them out. And by the time they came home, they were completely exhausted, and they were quiet. No noise, no fighting, nothing. Now, why did I have that mindset? Because I remember when I was young, and I was full of energy. I was full of energy, and I became an athlete, and I used to run for my local borough, and I became the champion of my borough because I had so much natural energy. What am I saying? When I saw my kids, they were just like me, they're full of energy. So I realized they had to go and burn the energy up in sports. And I took them out, and I literally made them wear themselves out, playing sports, playing football, playing all kinds of stuff. And by doing that, you know, I just channeled energy into being very positive. And so what am I trying to say to you? Even in the same family, you can have a different experience of life, very different experience of life. So if you want to make money making easy for you, live here, live here. I would suggest you take a picture of this screen, because on your mobile phones, because this is what will make you have a very different experience. You can literally go to work in a very depressing environment, but if you are in this zone, it's going to be like you're floating above the low morale of an environment you are forced to go into to make money. Because I literally was in a place of low morale at one point in my career, and I just floated above all of it. I was on another level. I was on a different vibration. Because like I said, this was my lowest point. I remember even coming up here, but that's for another story. That's another story. Someone says here, take time with that wisdom. Take time with that wisdom. Okay, well, you know, it is, but here's the bottom line. We literally can have, you can live in hell or you can live in heaven, you know, right where you are, right where you are. Anyway, so that's basically what I want to share with you. For those of you who want to kind of learn about the money-making strategy that I kind of focus on, I'm doing a one-day training on the 17th of October. And it's basically titled 1,000 to 1 million in 10 years or less. And I'm going to share with you literally a strategy that can take you there. There are many strategies. So I'm not going to tell you mine is the only one, because it is not. There are hundreds of ways to do this in a faster time period, in a slower time period. There are hundreds of ways. Okay. But I'm going to be teaching one. And the price is $225, and if you go to this website here, in fact, I think it's actually in the chat. So if you go to the very first thing in the chat, you'll find it there. Let me do a copy and paste and do it again. So it's at the bottom. So if you're interested, you can get that on your computer. And it says here, learn the fundamentals of a simple but powerful investing system where we show you how to achieve 20% profit from each trading each month. Join us now on a powerful, inspirational, wealth enhancing journey. And the next training session will be on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. 3 breaks throughout the day. Bring a pencil or bring a pen, calculator, and a notebook to the class. And then through this online training, you will learn the power of compounding and the essential parts of the formula that gives its power. The essential behaviors of rich and poor people, I kind of touched on that today. Learn how to identify in advance which assets make you rich, which ones make you poor in advance. You don't waste time playing with the one that make you broke. Learn a simple strategy that can grow your capital and pay you an income while you wait. And there's more and more things that go on. If you're interested, that's the link to book your spot. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for your time and your attention. And I want to wish you all a fantastic evening. Take care.